So I've done quite a number of these last night of the proms around the country, and particularly with the Sydney Symphony. It is and always has been a big musical party happening at the end of some 69 concerts, and as you can see, that it's called the Promenade because of all those people who are standing in that promenade area, and they are quite an extraordinary bunch of people. I lived in England for a while and was studying over there, and by the end of my time was working with the BBC on air, and so I did a number of broadcasts from the Proms, and then in 1991, I think it was, actually sang in the last night of the Proms with the BBC chorus, which was fantastic fun, except for the end when we got to Land of Hope and Glory, where you are supposed to know the words and I didn't. And I remember some camera coming past me, I'm sort of going, because every English person would know the words of it, but at that stage I didn't. So, but it is an amazing experience to be part of that. When we do it in Australia, and we've done it, as I said, around various parts of the country with various symphony orchestras, we actually do it in a slightly different way. In London, it's still very much a musical party. The Englishness of it, the sort of rah-rah, aren't we wonderful, Real Britannia part of it, only really happens at the very end. And the rest of the music doesn't necessarily have much to do with England. In Australia, because we tend to market it to a more Anglophile audience, to all the pommies are out here and miss home, we tend to sort of up the Englishness of it all, and most of the music is sort of to do with England. We might have some GNS, we might have some My Fair Lady, there'll be some straight classical works, Rossini and other orchestral pieces. And some of the orchestral pieces we do would be very English, like maybe one of the Coronation overtures like Crown Imperial, the Walton. So we up the Englishness of it as opposed to the original version, just because of it appeals to a very English market here that want to come along and see their own music and feel good about their homeland. And I think that was pointed out actually recently because the BBC actually came to Australia and they did a deal with the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra, and they sort of licensed the BBC Proms in Australia, and they did a last night of the Proms, which I heard quietly between us, wasn't anywhere near as much fun as the one that we would do in Sydney, because they basically did what they would have done in England, which is a little bit less rah-rah English and a little less interaction that I might do with the audience, maybe a few less jokes Andrew Davis would have done because he was doing it like the English version. So I think actually in this country we've found a wonderful balance of sort of fun, and by the end of it the audience are usually in a very fine mood, particularly on the Friday night after a couple of drinks, when they've come straight from work and there's a bit of dressing up. But this is the first time that the last night of the Proms has made its way into the Meet the Music series, which is fantastic. And we made a decision, on the other nights we do it, we would have had the Philharmonia Choir up the back, but through a sort of a scheduling issue, and also I thought it'd be more fun for everyone in the audience, mostly, school kids, to actually become the chorus. So it's a little bit more interactive than just sitting there and appreciating a concert. So it'll become the big sort of Sydney Opera House last night of the Proms Meet the Music chorus. And so what we're going to do today is just look through some of the bits and pieces that we are going to expect you guys to sort of know what to do. And it's not terribly complicated, and it's not necessarily going to be in 4-part harmony, although if you've got that desire to do that, you could easily do that and sing along at the end. So it mostly happens, obviously we don't ask you to sing along all the way through, because that would that would be terrible, but the most of the stuff sort of happens towards the end in the C-song sort of structure, and what traditionally happens, as Jim was showing you at the end, when you get through the C-songs and you have the hornpipe, and then we have some of these other songs going into Rule Britannia, Jerusalem, the famous hymn, and then into the Land of Hope and Glory, the Pomp and Circumstance March number 1. This is on the screen, the Home Sweet Home. Simply, we don't normally sing this because in the Fantasia and British Sea songs, it's played beautifully as an oboe solo, but the tradition is that everyone sort of hums along underneath very softly. And that's the other funny thing in a sense about our concert as part of Meet the Music as opposed to the other concerts, because there is so much tradition built into this this concert about what the audience is expected to do, that it's good for you guys to sort of send out the message about, well, this is traditionally what happens, and of course you can see it from the videos from the real last night of the Proms. But in this one, we all would just sort of hum along, And it's funny, with the adult audiences on the other nights, sometimes they do and sometimes they don't, but it's quite nice if they do. The funny thing about this is that I think we actually do it in B-flat major rather than... It'd be more like, so you'd be sort of humming. Come along. And then, and then there's a tricky, as I remember, cadenza from the oboe, which you don't have to sing. Oh, it's going to be so beautiful. Doesn't that just make you feel so homesick? So that little middle section, see at bar 17, this is the original, but in fact, in the arrangement that we use, that section goes a bit faster. It's like, home, home, sweet, sweet home. So it's almost like double time. And then you sort of drop out here, oboe. I always remember that because when I was in England, I was Yehudi Menuhin ran this thing called Live Music Now, and it would send our musicians into sort of community areas. And we went. It was a flute, piano, and cello trio, as I was playing part of. We went into a retirement village somewhere in the Midlands, somewhere in an afternoon, and there was this lovely sweet old lady sort of sitting down the front, and we had played everything we had to play, and then we just needed one more little thing to wrap it up, and for some reason we had an arrangement of this, and I said, let's just do Home Sweet Home. And we started, and the poor old darling dissolved into howls and tears, and of course she had just moved in yesterday and had left her Home Sweet Home. We felt so bad. But the staff said, look, it's wonderful, it's going to get all the emotions out of the system, but we had to go next door to the cheese factory and drink about 17 gallons of scrumpy or whatever that stuff is and try to make ourselves feel better about it. So that's how Home Sweet Home goes, which is pretty easy. So let's move on to the next one. At the end of, which is Rule Britannia, what we do is we do a big cut from the piece before. We do a big key change, and then we go straight into this, but in B-flat major, so it's not quite so high. And also, don't worry, we don't expect you to sing the whole... We don't have to do all that. We have a fully paid-up professional soloist who'll take that and do it for you. So all you guys have to do is come in the Britannia, roll the waves, Britons never ever shall be, or will be slaves, yeah. So it's just the chorus, and once again, it's just down the tone from that particular version. So she goes, this was the charter of the land, and guardian angels sang this strange, oh shit, that's the wrong key, this strange, and... Yeah, it's will be slaves, actually, and that's the right version rather than shall be slaves, that's right. And that happens twice. So this is when we really need everyone to punch it out in the concert hall. Let's try it again, straight on it, 2, 3, go. And you repeat it, and roll, Britannia, Britannia, roll away. And then we go around, and that goes around, I think it's about 4 verses we do of that. It seems to go on forever, actually. And then she comes back around, or he. I don't think we've actually decided who our soloist is yet. But let's go from, and the last time we do it, we slow it right up. So we do it twice every time of the chorus. And the last time we do it twice, but the very last time is much slower, yeah? So we'll go from this was the charter of the land, and guardian angels sang this strain, and... That's right. And then if you've got sopranos, just it'd be great to fill it out. Never will be slaves. That's right. You can get up to a top B flat, can you? Not at this time of morning, and not without other people around you, I know. So that's it. And once again, it's like you can fill it out to 4-part harmony. That's the best thing about it, because then just to turn around and see the entire concert hall, doing all this, and I presume we'll be handing out little flags and stuff, will we, Linda? We will, yeah. It's sort of a bit tragic in Australia, really, isn't it? But and actually, before I forget, at the very end of this, normally what I do is we do a 1 chorus and verse at the end of the whole night of Waltzing Matilda, just to sort of, like a palate cleanser. And then just to sort of say to everyone, actually, guess what? You live in Australia. So we'll get onto that later, but we usually do it at the end. Yeah. So yes, you can just go into 4-part harmony, etc. So let's do it one more time, last time from the end. So this was the charter of the land, and guardian angels sang this strain. That's it, yeah. So that's a lot of fun, and that ends the Fantasia on Sea songs, which is such a hoot. And it's funny. Usually that's the point. Once we get to that hornpipe, that's when the audience suddenly goes, it's party time. You can hear, but even then we sort of have to train them that you just don't clap on the beat all the way through, that it's basically going ba-da-da-da-dee-da-dum, bump, bump, like that. So they eventually get it. So that's Rule Britannia, and then straight after that, we go into Jerusalem, which is just such a wonderful, I must say, to sort of conduct this at the Opera House with the Sydney Symphony and everyone's singing along. It's just one of those great moments. You turn around and you think, wow, I should be paying them for the privilege of doing this rather than the other way around. And we have this wonderful arrangement of the Parry, also by Edward Elgar, which has the strings doing the most fantastic things. There's one point where they sort of go right up to the top, and usually the first violins of the Sydney Symphony, they'd love it so much, they all sort of like, I always think it's so much a part of it is that the orchestra has a good time as well, because often, orchestras, they're a very serious bunch in the sense, well, they're not off stage, they're not backstage serious, but when they get on the stage, they're very serious, they're thinking very carefully about what they're doing and trying to make it the best they possibly can. But in a night like this, when they can sort of let their hair down, the music is difficult, but not so difficult. And I think it's always wonderful when they show that they're having fun, because then the audience also sort of gets involved. It's amazing how an audience, I think, always reacts to the fact that an orchestra is having a good time. We did a last night of the Proms in Adelaide. I think it must have been 2012, which was it was on the final day of the London Olympics. So there was a sort of a London Olympic theme going on, and I always try and do something that catches the orchestra unawares. So at the end, I said to the baritone soloist, Jose Carbo, I said, would it be possible for you to go out at the end of the concert, we take a bow, you to go out, take a bit of time, and then start the Chariots of Fire theme. And he said, sure, no problem. And I did. The only person I spoke to was the snare, the percussionist. Had to get the right tempo, boom, 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 boom. So then the orchestra's starting, and I had meanwhile underneath my tails had a series of just the white running gear, managed to, and then came on from side stage like this. And it was just such a bad gag. But the orchestra particularly just thought they couldn't believe what was happening. And then Jose and I think there had been quite a few baton drops during the London Olympics. We sort of tried to do the baton exchange. And then I had this hotel towel that I'd sort of pre-wetted really pretty severely, which was there, and sort of mopped this and then sort of, just sort of squeezed it out over the front row of the audience. But anyway, anything to get the orchestra having a good time. They had a good time, and then everyone enjoyed themselves in the audience as well. So this is actually in the right key, thank heavens. And there's a bit of an introduction, and then this is all just in unison until the end. And it's a pretty famous hymn, but let's have a go. So 1 and 2. In the intro section, yum ba dum, then bring me my boy. That's going to be great. And bring me my spear. Oh, it's just a little small thing, but if you're teaching it to people, bring me my spear. Oh, clouds unfall. It's just great to lift off there. Bring me my spear. Oh, cloud unfall. Bring me my chariot of fire. And then a bit softer. I will not cease from mental fight. And get bigger towards the end. Oh, that was so much fun. Let's just do it again, shall we? I enjoyed that. And there's a bit of intro, so and it goes. That's great, yeah. And once again, that'll sound, it's great actually if it's all just in unison. That works perfectly well. You don't have to do any sort of harmony there at all. So then straight after that, we go into the big sort of finish, well, the first of a number of finishes, because I always think a successful concert is sort of really built up in the last 15 minutes or so of what you do. It almost doesn't matter what happened before. If you get the end right, and I've learned over a number of years, it's best to actually almost program a little less in the body of the program and then just have lots of encores. And it's true. I almost sometimes think that it'd be better in a concert to do like about 10 minutes of the proper concert and say, now we've finished, and let's just have encores from here to the end. And everyone has a great time, as if that's what they're not there for the whole time through. So sometimes we've had up to like 4 encores, and it's great because it just sort of ramps up until the audience and the orchestra and everyone's all excited, and then we all go away and have a drink. So in Land of Hope and Glory, obviously, is the vocal version of the Pomp and Circumstance March No. 1. And it wasn't Elgar's, he didn't write the words, it wasn't his intention to have it as a sort of apotheosis of empire. In fact, apparently, I think he actually hated the words. He didn't like it. He was a bit of not a Republican, but he didn't really go in for all that, even though he wrote all this sort of rah-rah English music. So still, of course, it's one of the most popular songs ever and very stirring. And it's funny what Jim was saying about Brexit, because some wag over there, like when we were talking about Rule Britannia before, said that, during that whole thing, that obviously it's now, Rule Britannia, Britannia waives the rules after. So clever. But this sort of music, in England must make them feel very confident. I mean, they had an empire before. They weren't in the European Union before, and they survived, and they'll probably survive again. So there are the trick of this is that there are 2 versions of when you sing, and they're both in different keys, and everyone always comes in too soon. So it'd be great if we can not do that with our concert. So we have the whole first bit of the pomp and circumstance, and then it goes very quiet, and you get the first statement of the... But that's just orchestra. So you hear that tune all the way through. And then we sing. So there's always one through, and then you get into the chorus. Now, obviously, this can be quite high for sopranos, but it's all right, Apparently, that probably burns more calories than just singing down an octave, so it'd be good for weight loss as well. So let's have a sing through in whatever octave you feel. And we can also look at the harmony in a moment, because we can do as much harmony as you want. But the tune is 2, 3, go. Sorry. You make thee mightier yet, make thee mighty, make thee mightier yet. And I'll probably try and give cut-offs, actually, now I think about it. God who made thee mighty. So there's long ones. Shall thy bounds be set? God who made thee mighty, make thee mighty yet. You just come off on the crotchet before. God who made thee mighty, make thee mightier yet. The harmony line they've got in here, in C major, we could do, they can go, Land of hope and glory, Mother of... we should just find it up there. So that's the harmony. You see this harmony C line? Or even you could just sing what's in the piano part. Just pick one of the piano chords, and we can just turn it into 4-part harmony. 2, 3, go. Just wait for... There we go. That's right, and then you can just add the words to those. So it'd be like, God who made thee mighty, make thee mightier yet. So just add the words in. Should we just try it in 4-part harmony and see what happens? So some of you sing the tune, some pick one of the... And we'll see how beautiful it sounds. 2, go, and... Wasn't that nice? All we have to do is make that sound a bit more like we mean it, you know, once you actually know the words. Okay, so let's do, so that, we'll do it all through in a moment. That's the first time it happens. And then we go back into the that goes on for a while. And then you get the second big build up, and we do the same thing in D major. So it sort of goes then it's it's half time. That's right. So in the second time, you haven't actually got it goes into half time. God who made thee mighty, make thee mightier. Down off. Yeah. Does that make sense? And you just could do it exactly the same harmonies, but it's just that little bit higher, which makes it more exciting at the end. That's cool. So let's go through it one more time from the top, back to the G major. So you get the first whole orchestral version. goes on for a while, on and on and on and on, and then yeah, so that's just the trick, and the D major version is always going slow a half time. So after God who made thee mighty, make thee mightier yet. Digga-digga-digga-digga-dum. So that all makes sense, doesn't it then, yeah. But that'd be great, and when you've got 2,500 people all singing that, it sounds pretty damn good, I have to say. And then after that, that's the ostensible end of the concert. And then we'd come back and do some sort of encore. And then what we normally do is have another round of the D major version of this, just to give everyone else another go, which usually gives us an opportunity to either have a confetti cannon or a balloon drop or something at the end of that. And then after that, there'll be any number of other bits of encores. And then, as I said, we probably would sing Waltzing Matilda at the very end, just to remind us that we actually live in Australia. So yes, it's a sort of this sort of version of the Last Night of the Proms is a slightly different one to the one you'd see on the YouTube from the actual one itself in London. But I think it sort of works pretty well for Australia, and I think it's very exciting that we're going to have, a version here with the Meet the Music crowd, because at least it'll be more interactive. And there's quite a lot of joking around. There's a lot of jokes within the orchestra. It is, as Jim said, a big party. So I think from that point of view, actually, it'll be quite entertaining. Not to say the other concerts aren't entertaining in the series, but this one, you know what I mean? This one has a little bit more interactive and participation, because often you're not asked to sing like, the Bach B minor mass with the audience, are you? So is there anything else, any questions or anything at all? Does that all make sense?